Can we get the free nights and weekends porn like you did on my old cell phone plan?
Maybe.
After 9 o'clock, it's cheaper porn.
Could be scrambled. And here, finally, in 1980s news, the Axel F that never was. So, as I mentioned earlier, Brandon says Will's shaking those dungeon dice.
Yes, I'm just playing D&D.
I'm shaking those dice.
I'm gonna get lucky tonight.
I'm rolling those dice.
So as I mentioned up top, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F premiered on Netflix on July 3rd, returning Eddie Murphy's fish out of Detroit detective to the screen 30 years after his last disastrous outing. Now
that was 3.
Like giving folks, we're going to give folks time to see it before we actually chat about the film and our thoughts about it. But I will give you this promising, I think, review. You got something, John?
Oh, go ahead. Before you get to the show part,
story,
I want to mention something about the movie.
But I'll give you this, what I think is a promising review from Variety. They write, nostalgia when it comes to reviving an old movie series can be axiomatic. Every so often you see a genuine piece of nostalgia like Creed or the 2009 Star Trek reboot or the 2014 Godzilla. But then there's the kind of nostalgia represented by Beverly Hills Cop Axel F.
Is that
If I want to
good
read
or
this
bad?
whole thing. Plotted like a generic police corruption thriller, lit with cruddy efficiency, pausing every 10 minutes or so for a light moment, the movie is no Beverly Hills Cop. So that sounds like a downer. But then they continue. It's better than the ballistic noise orgy that was Beverly Hills Cop 2 or the clunky retro mess of Beverly Hills Cop 3. So I guess we should be grateful, and I suspect a lot of viewers who grew up in the 80s will be. Yeah, that's not bad to me. That's not a turnoff. I think this could be fine.
Yeah,
Seems kind of
it's
middle
not
of the road.
high praise, but it's something. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like
Now,
Beverly
do
Hills
you
Cop
guys-
too, so.
You like the second one?
Yeah.
It's all right.
I thought it
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah. And if this is better than that, well, that feels okay. That's
Exactly,
great.
right.
Do you guys remember when you first heard the term prequel? For me, it might have been The Phantom Menace. Like maybe I never heard of the term prequel. Maybe that
believe
came
that was it for
around
me.
then. The concept of we're going to do a sequel that happened in the past.
Yeah, I might say it was Temple of Doom, because I do remember.
Really?
we
Okay.
talked about
All right.
this.
I hadn't heard it, so
Yeah.
that's fair. Whatever.
Right.
But in one of the articles, I don't think it was the one we were talking about here, but in one of the articles I read, I think they coined a new term for sequels that happen way, way, way past the last one to intentionally invoke nostalgia. Have you seen this new term?
I don't think so.
I can't
no.
wait to hear it.
No? I think it's brilliant. It's a
What?
lega-sequel.
Legacy.
Oh,
Legacy.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Yes.
that's Top Gun Maverick.
Right.
That's
what I was
Axel F. That's coming the number 2 America. That's the latest Ghostbusters out. Maybe kind of, I
Ghostbusters?
guess, a sequel that is so far past that it's really a nostalgia trap that also is a movie. I like that. I'm using it. Lega-sequel. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Legacy sequel. All right.
Yeah. And
I like
you know
it.
what? In what it sort of suggests, I'm for it. I'm okay with that. To the
Yeah.
extent that you've talked
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
John, the best sequels are ones that are continuations that they're tied to the old, but they can advance it, bring in
Right.
some new folks. That's fine. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Would
don't
you
know if
put
the new term did they make it up for this movie? I don't know, but I like it.
Yeah. Ghostbusters Afterlife, I guess, too, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah,
I
probably.
think-
Yeah, I think so.
I think they
Sure.
can
Yep.
Yeah.
So in 1989, when Eddie Murphy was asked about a third installment for the film franchise, Murphy told the Rolling Stone, quote, "There's no reason to do it. How often can you have Axel Foley talk fast and get into a place he doesn't belong? Paramount ain't going to write me a check as big as I want to do something like that. In fact, if I do a Cop 3, you can safely say, ooh, he must have got a lot of money." Well, in 1994, we did in fact get Beverly Hills Cop 3, which was inexplicably directed by John Landis, who's known for sort of broad comedy, or certainly broader comedy than Beverly Hills Cop was.
Yep.
But it was written by Steven D'Souza. If you remember Steven D'Souza? I always
trying to
remind you of
remember.
this guy, and you guys don't remember until I tell you this. He was in that game we played of all the interconnected worlds, TV and movies. He connected a bunch of them because he's the screenwriter of Die Hard.
Oh,
And he wrote some other films and TV shows that wound up being tied together because of a fictional country he created and so on and so forth. Anyway,
okay.
so he wrote the
Okay, ring a bell.
screenplay. And he actually originally penned Beverly Hills Cop 3 to be like Die Hard at a theme park. And if you've seen the film, it is set in a theme park. But how he had originally written the script, ultimately the studio said, yeah, we can't afford to spend, I think it was something like $10 million on each ride we'd have to build
Oh,
Whoa.
to serve the purposes of
Wow.
the plot as you've written it.
right. Easier as a book or a script.
And as a side note, Murphy received $15 million for reprising his role.
Wow. That reminds me of in our last episode, you played a clip where
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy said, I didn't like the script, or I can't believe they showed me that script. But then,
Then we check, and I said, "When do we start?" Right?
Yes.
He's like, eager.
yes.
Yeah, you're right, Kat. And he said at the time he was, whoring himself artistically or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was for
Sure.
$1
Yeah,
million.
yeah.
So
Right.
I guess he's able to negotiate higher rates in the 90s. By the 2000s, enough time had passed, or so the studios believed, that Paramount pivoted the franchise from the movie theaters to the new widescreen TVs that were starting to pop up in our living rooms in the beginning of the 21st century. With Murphy uninterested in bringing the franchise to television, show producers decided to center the show around Axel's son, Aaron Foley, who was to be played by Brandon T. Jackson. You've probably seen him in the first incarnation of the Percy Jackson films. He was in Tropic Thunder. He's a good actor. He's certainly funny.
He is. Yeah.
Well, this TV show wound up at CBS, and it had quite a creative pedigree. It was to be produced by Sean Ryan, who created The Shield. Certainly a wonderful and successful dramatic police procedural. And the pilot was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who, among the many films he directed, included the Men in Black films.
Yep.
And to establish the series as legitimate continuation of the film, which was super important, Ryan and Sonnenfeld actually talked Eddie Murphy into reprising his role as Axel in the pilot episode.
Oh, okay.
But what the producers hoped would be their pièce de résistance turned out to be more of a coup de grace. Because as Murphy explained to IndieWire in 2019, the test audiences were thrilled to see him in the pilot. But as soon as he disappeared from the screen, they weren't interested.
Oh, man.
And the problem was that Murphy had no interest in being in any other episode. According to Murphy, quote, "The studio thought I was going to be in this show because the lead was my son." And they'd said, "And you're going to pop in every now and then." And I was like, "I ain't popping in shit."
Again, unless he's paid enough, we've established,
Yeah,
but probably
right.
not. Okay.
If you want to check it out, it's not terrible. It's
No.
fine, really. But Eddie Murphy pops in 45 minutes into the hour-long show, and he's in it for the remaining 12 minutes or whatever's left, 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But it's good, and Brandon T. Jackson is definitely fine as his son and all that.
Yeah, I watched. It's on YouTube, as you said. There's a link to it, and you can go and watch. And it feels like a humorous. It feels like Beverly Hills Cop. It feels like a tongue-in-cheek, but cop drama going on in the background. And his son definitely has. It's written like Axel, so it's the snarkiness. There's a scene where he's talking to this, mega billionaire guy in his office, and he has a Donkey Kong machine, and I think the term is basically, "I'm going to play Donkey Kong one more time, and before I get done entering my initials, you better give me information I can use." It's very kind of irreverent to other people, and he's just trying to get results in a snarky kind of way. It felt like Beverly Hills Cop to me. As you said, probably having Murphy in it reminded people he wasn't in it the rest of the time was the problem. Just having him not there would have been better.
Right. That's what I'm wondering is if it could have stood on its own and been enjoyed.
I felt like it could. Yeah.
Yeah, but then once people felt the the absence
Right.
of Murphy,
Yeah.
they just gave up on it. Oh,
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, look,
Yeah.
whatever. And I guess whether this next film will be good or not, we will see. Karen says it's next on her list for tomorrow to watch it. The Coming to America sequel was fun. Yeah, I think that was, I enjoyed the Coming to America. It was, you know what bothered me about it, I know we talked about this, was one of the things was, and it may be true of this Axel F too, I haven't watched it yet, is it's not shot on film anymore. You know, they shoot these things digitally. And there's, I don't know, is it because we grew up watching things on film that automatically anything that's digital kind of seems fake to me, for lack of a better word coming to mind?
sure.
I don't know.
There is something a little less. Movies used to be a big deal. You only saw a movie at the movies, unless you waited for them to, rent them later or whatever. But even then, they looked like the movie you saw in the theater.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
now, with the advent of digital, as you said, and streaming, it's because of the lack of film grain or the lack of stock that it has. It just looks like everything else, so it doesn't feel special. That's the feeling that I get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I wonder if we knew, this reminds me of something John said, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, I know. We were talking about theater and how theater is, live without a net. Anything could go wrong. And there's a sense to it. Not that you're hoping anything can go wrong, but it creates this sort of camaraderie of the shared experience, this excitement where we're all invested in the outcome together, And we appreciate the risks these folks on stage are taking. I wonder if either intuitively or because it was part of the zeitgeist with behind the scenes, vignettes and stuff that we had on TV, that we understood that it was expensive to shoot on film. You can only fit so much film in a canister before you had a cut. It was only a few minutes before they had a cut, which is why scenes would be, you had to cut scenes together. And so there was sort of more of that kind of, without a net feeling, in the sense that, I don't know, it's more guerrilla, or having I don't know, maybe I'm not saying it the right way, but that where digital seems so pristine, and I know they could just keep, what the time is what costs, obviously.
Yeah. Take 73, keep rolling.
And they do,
there's no cost to trying it again, right?
And sometimes they do.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe some inherent, it's kind of like, when they use CGI for stunts versus in the 80s when they would have a guy just get in a car and flip it.
Right.
Even though we're in no danger, there's something about it that makes it more, I don't know, visceral or, I don't know,